In that very spot, on the sandy path where the morning breeze carried fresh scents, she felt the fullness of life for the first time in years. Who would have thought that interacting with horses would grant her more freedom than all the people she had ever met? At 35, her existence until recently had been like an automated program, waking up, performing duties, loving according to a set script, or so it seemed to her, and going to bed with a sense of dissatisfaction. Yet, she lacked the courage to admit this even to herself. She had always met others' expectations, being a strong, practical, and attractive woman. It all began quite unexpectedly when a friend suggested visiting a stable. She assumed it would be an ordinary pastime. But as soon as her eyes beheld the endless field where horses galloped as if they were the masters of this world, something awakened within her soul. Each of their steps seemed to resonate in her heart, shattering the gray routine she called her life. Initially, she doubted her ability to ride these animals. But stepping onto the grass, covered in morning dew, she felt she was exactly where she was supposed to be. And there, surrounded by timid smiles and under the confident guidance of an instructor helping to secure the saddle, she realized how extraordinary these creatures were. They seemed to see her hidden desires, which became an extension of herself. With each of their movements, she felt herself drifting away from the person she no longer recognized in herself. But she had no idea that this first step would be the beginning of something much greater. It's funny how people get used to silence, isn't it? Not the cozy, comforting kind, but the heavy one that hangs between two people who no longer know what to say. They had been together for over a decade. From the outside, everything seemed perfect, a beautiful house, weekend dinners, and that very stability that, in theory, should be present in every couple. But the truth is, stability can be deceptive. It subtly transforms into routine, kisses become mechanical, and conversations dwindle to discussions about work. It was like performing roles in an empty theater, without an audience and without passion. And she had resigned herself to it. And then she met him. He possessed a breathtaking energy, as if he carried an entire world in his eyes yet still found space to truly see her. With him, everything was different. There was no burden of years of resentment or unspoken expectations. Their communication was profound, it seemed every word he spoke carried a piece of his soul. She wondered, when did everything change? When did their hands, once so close, become strangers? At first, she tried to push the feeling away, blaming herself, her job, the routine. But every time he looked at her, she felt something she had long forgotten: desire, admiration, life itself. It wasn't just about him, but about how he reminded her of herself, the one who loved genuine laughter, who dreamed, who believed in a love that made her heart beat faster. And deep down, she knew it was him. There are places that aren't on any map, yet they can transport us to paradise. That's exactly how she felt in his world, as if he had given her the keys to a sanctuary she never knew existed. The days spent at the stable were unlike anything she had ever experienced. He opened up a world to her that was much more than just horses galloping across green fields. It was a connection to nature, to animals, to parts of herself she hadn't even known were there. He spoke with such passion, explaining every aspect of horse care in detail, as if they were more than just majestic creatures. And, honestly, they were. She watched him gently stroke the mane of one of the horses, explaining that each had its own personality, its own quirks. And gradually, she began to understand that it was precisely this kind of attention and care she had been missing in her life, someone seeing her with such devotion. She remembered how each morning spent there, she felt more and more alive, as if the place helped her breathe again. It wasn't just about the stable. It was about what he and this world symbolized. It was a promise of a life full of vibrant colors, less suffocating than before. But most of all, she was touched by the simple moments, conversations in the shade of trees, the sound of hooves in the quiet after lunch, his gaze when he thought she wasn't looking. It was a pulsating life, brimming with color and possibilities, unlike the gray palette she had grown accustomed to. Each day there was like opening a window to something greater. And, without even realizing it, she began to dream that this new life she felt within herself would become a reality, and of what she was willing to do to understand what her heart truly desired. There were nights when she woke up and stared at the ceiling, trying to find answers that wouldn't come. She recalled so many conversations they hadn't had, so many moments when they chose silence instead of expressing their true feelings. It was as if they stood on the edge of an abyss, trying to convince themselves it didn't exist. However, the thought of hurting him was unbearable. He was a part of her history.